Happy holidays! You're watching Legally Speaking. I'm Kenya Johnson.
And I'm Sonia Brown. Legally Speaking is brought to you by the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, GABWA.
GABWA is a voluntary bar association that seeks to advocate for women and children and seeks to empower our community. This show is not intended to give legal advice, so should you have a legal concern, it's always best to consult with an attorney.
Did you know that 3 out of 4 automobile crashes happen within 25 miles of the home? Or that if you wore your safety seatbelts, you increase your chances of survival by 45%? Well, on today's show, we'll talk about all the automobile and traffic laws you need to know as you keep you and your family safe on the roads this holiday season.
Today's guests have valuable insight on this very topic. When we return, we'll hear from Sergeant Jeff Pluckett from the Georgia State Highway Patrol.
Stay with us. There's more to come on Legally Speaking. Welcome back to Legally Speaking. I'm Sonia Brown. On today's show, we're talking about automobile and traffic laws and how to keep you and your family safe this holiday season. Our first guest today is Sergeant Jeff Pluckett with the Georgia State Patrol. Welcome to the show, Sergeant Pluckett.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you here. Glad you're here. Very important topic. Want to get some really great information out to our guests. But before we start, tell us a little bit about your experience and how you got to be here.
I'm Sergeant Jeff Pluckett. I'm Sergeant First Class, and I'm signed here to Metro Atlanta. I've had about almost 24 years of law enforcement experience, and about 20 of that years, almost 20 of that's been with the State Patrol.
Okay. Wonderful. So you have quite a bit of experience, and I know in talking with you, very experienced in this topic that we're going to be talking about today. So what I want to get right into it, talk to me about aggressive driving and aggressive drivers. What is that? I hear the word all the time, but what is that?
Well, there's 2 different types of aggressive drivers. There's actually a law that deals with aggressive driving, and that kind of deals with road rage. But I think more so what you're speaking of is basically people that are being aggressive, and you'll see those, motoring public will see those. Everybody's driving the speed limit. You'll have one motorist that'll come up, he's tailgating, he's following too closely, he's making erratic lane changes, speeding in and out, weaving through traffic. Very dangerous. Those lane changes with the magnitude of vehicles that we have out here on the roadway, cutting in and out of traffic, one of the leading causes to our accidents out here today.
And you said one of the leading causes. How many accidents or statistically are we seeing on the roads in Georgia?
On average, about 1,500 a year. We're very fortunate. Since 2006, we did actually reach a peak in 2006. We had approximately 1,700 accidents here in Georgia. Now, we've actually, well, those are fatality accidents.
Oh, wow.
We actually had a decline. 2010 has been one of our lowest years since we've actually kept records, down to 1,200, just above 1,200 fatalities here in Georgia.
And I know that Georgia State Patrol and all of our law enforcement agencies in Georgia work really hard at keeping us safe on our roads. Talk to me about super speeders and super speeder law, and do you think that law may correlate to why we're seeing fatalities go down?
Yes, I do. The super speeder law was enacted a couple years ago. And basically what it entails, 85 miles an hour on the interstates. If you're traveling 85 or greater, you're going to be declared a super speeder. 75 miles an hour on a secondary road or a state route or something similar to that. What's going to happen is once you're convicted, if you're convicted at that speed, the courts will send a notice to the Department of Driver Services. You'll receive a letter from the Department of Driver Services, and there'll be an additional $200 fine. If you fail to report that or pay that fine, they're actually going to come in and suspend your driver's license, and there'll be an additional charge to have your license reinstated. That money is going to be put back in general funds to help support our trauma centers throughout the state, hopefully improve those.
And which is great. We attach a monetary fine to it. We know people don't want to have to spend the extra money. And then also the suspending of the license, because without your driver's license, you can't get around. And I think really great, I know that living in the metro area, we do have the trauma centers, but as we get outside of the metro area, that's a big issue when people who are involved in fatal accidents, right?
Yes, the golden hour they speak of is a critical hour to getting somebody to that hospital or to a trauma center. These funds will help improve those, or maybe even put different trauma centers throughout the state.
Excellent. And what's a golden hour?
The golden hour is the time from that initial crash, from the time that the crash occurs, somebody's a critical injury, getting them to that trauma center within an hour. Okay. They call it a golden hour because the sooner they're brought into those trauma centers, the more likelihood or the chances that their survival rate will go up.
Excellent. Excellent. And in this holiday season, yes, we know that a lot of people enjoy the festivities.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that people are keeping themselves safe and keeping other drivers safe. And I know that you and Georgia State Patrol have a Operation Zero Tolerance.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means to our viewing audience as they get out on the roads this season?
Operation Zero Tolerance is a campaign, basically the whole entire state of Georgia. The Governor's Office of Highway Safety, which is a division of state government, they actually promote this campaign throughout the state of Georgia. And they do it at different times of the year. One of the main times that they do it is during the holiday season. Christmas parties, office parties, end of the year festivities, those increase. And we want to make people aware that if you are caught driving or having above the legal limit with too much alcohol, you will be arrested. You will go to jail.
I've seen those commercials, and it sort of shocks you that people even consider knowing that they're not able to drive and they still get behind the wheel.
Well, that's one of the things we try to promote. We ask people to, when they know they're going to go to an event, when they know they're going to go out on an evening and they may consume alcohol, most people plan that event. Mm-hmm. They actually know what they're going to wear. They plan what they're going to wear. They plan the route that they're going to take to that event. Mm-hmm. We're asking for them at that point. That's when you need to plan to take care of your vehicle, to take care of your transportation to and from. Don't take the chances in drinking and driving. Once you've had something to alcohol, which is, it impairs your judgment, once you consume something like that, you can't make a logical decision about whether you should drive or not.
And that's great advice, is that we're planning what to wear, we're planning how to get there, we're planning the party. Let's plan to keep ourselves safe as well.
Yes.
I like that. And another thing, we want to talk about what keeps us safe on the road. We've talked about, speeding, we've talked about driving under the influence. Talk to me about distracted driving and what is distracted driving?
Well, distracted driving, and you've seen here in recent years, we've enacted a texting law, no texting. That is part of distracted driving. We also see people fooling with the radios or eating or even putting on makeup or reading while they're driving down the road. Anything that you can't at any time put both hands on the steering wheel at the same time, that is actually a distraction. You shouldn't be doing that. It's just as dangerous. Sometimes we see the similar actions that a person does as an impaired driver when they're being distracted.
And I've heard that texting while you're driving or even being on a phone call, people think, oh, I'm on a phone call, but I've heard that if you're on a phone call and it gets emotional, if you're having an emotional conversation on your cell phone in the car, that is almost equivalent to being an impaired driver who's had alcohol to drink. Is that so?
We see very similar violations that actually lead us up to stopping an impaired driver we do with texting and distracted driving.
And when you stop a driver, what is it that you're expecting when you get to the car? What should drivers have? We know that we hear this when we get our driver's license, but people don't always have the necessary information that they need when they're driving. What is it that drivers should have if they get pulled over by law enforcement?
Well, right now, just your driver's license. If you could have it, have it handy and be able to present that. People get nervous when they're dealing with law enforcement. It's expected, and we know that. But a lot of stress, a lot of times get with people, and then the fact that they're getting stopped, that brings on more stress. The more polite that they can be, I promise you they'll probably see a better polite officer that they're going to deal with. That has to deal with any law enforcement.
And I think this good customer service goes both ways.
Yes.
And I know you talked about getting nervous. I know when I'm on the expressway and I see the blue lights behind me, it makes me nervous. I start looking at the speedometer, making sure that I'm doing what I need to do to keep myself and keep everybody else safe.
Yeah, we see that quite often. We see that a lot.
And I want to talk to you too about, we're talking about keeping ourselves safe. So if I'm the driver, I know what I need to do, but I'm responsible for everybody around me. But let's talk about when we have our kids in the car with us. What are the requirements for safety restraints for children and even up to 12, 13, 14-year-olds? Because I know I have a 13-year-old nephew that wants to sit in the front seat. He's much taller than me. He's like, I'm big enough, I want to sit in the front seat. What's the law say about that?
Well, of course, every child needs to be restrained up until the age of 18. Actually, the Georgia State Patrol has been very aggressive. We are one of the few agencies where every trooper is trained in child passenger restraints. It's actually a course offered by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Every trooper is trained in that. And by that training, we like to educate also. It's not just about enforcement. We go out, we have child safety road checks to where we're actually checking seats to make sure that they're proper, to make sure that there are no recalls on those seats. We get updated lists actually almost daily from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. We make sure that they're installed properly, and we actually teach. We don't just put the seat in for the driver. We teach the driver how to install the seats. So, but every child needs to be restrained. Depending on the height and weight of your individual child, there are certain requirements that are required. But we're asking booster seats now up until they're 8 years old.
Okay. That's good to know,
Yes.
keeping our kids safe. And you mentioned something about educating parents. What if I'm a new mom or new dad and got the car seat? Before I go to the hospital, is there somewhere I could go and I could learn how to put the seat in?
Most definitely. You can go to any Georgia State Patrol post. If you want to, we have access on the internet. You can find the phone number. You can make an appointment. We will gladly come out with you, show you the seat itself. We'll go through the directions with you, the owner's manual. We'll show you the different ways of carrying, installing the seat into your specific vehicle.
Okay.
We'll show you how to do it, and then we'll have you do it. And by the actual driver doing that themselves, they'll learn, because that child restraint seat doesn't always stay in that individual car.
Right.
It goes sometimes to grandma's car,
Right.
Or to dad's car, to mom's car. So, but we'll teach you how to install that seat so it's properly installed. And then as a child progresses, especially as a new infant, when the time is to turn it around and face it forward.
Okay. Excellent. This is
Yes.
such great advice. And Sergeant Pluckett, before we go, if you had to tell our viewing audience one or two pieces of advice to keep themselves safe this holiday season, what would you say to them?
Again, it would be the drinking and driving. We will have strict enforcement this holiday period, as we do all holiday periods. We actually there's troopers that actually work some administrative duties, but they will actually be out on patrol enforcing the DUI laws, speeding laws, and child and adult passenger restraint seatbelt laws. Please don't drink and drive. Make those plans ahead of time. When you're planning to go to that event, you know it's coming up this Friday. You're a couple of days off. Let's plan how we're going to get there. Let's plan how we're going to get home. Don't wait till we've had something to drink and then make those decisions. We can't make logical decisions once we've had something.
Excellent advice, and I want to thank you, Sergeant Pluckett, and all law enforcement in the state of Georgia for all the work that you do, not just this holiday season, but all year round. We thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on how to keep yourself safe during this holiday season. There's more to come on Legally Speaking.
Welcome back to Legally Speaking. I'm Kenya Johnson. On today's show, we're discussing traffic and automobile laws. Earlier, we heard from a member of the Georgia State Highway Patrol. Now we have with us Judge Crystal Gaines from the City of Atlanta Municipal Court and attorney Laren Barnes Freeman. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Judge Gaines, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what type of cases the City of Atlanta Municipal Court handles.
I've actually been sitting on the bench for the City of Atlanta about 12 years. A part of that is that I served with the City Traffic Court, and now I am Chief Judge for the Atlanta Municipal Court. We actually handle an assortment of criminal cases that include traffic cases, everything from the parking ticket to driving under the influence.
Laren, can you tell us a little bit about your practice?
Sure, I am currently a solo practitioner. I represent local governments as solicitor, city attorney, and I also have a criminal defense practice where I represent individuals charged with traffic violations and also DUI.
Now, we're talking a lot about DUI, driving under the influence. Can you tell us the different types of DUI charges there are?
Absolutely. Here in Georgia, you can be driving under the influence less safe or even driving under the influence per se. The difference is a test. When you're a less safe driver, they have not given you what's called the Intoxilizer 5000 or a blood test to determine whether or not you're over the legal limit, which in Georgia is 0.08 for those persons over the age of 21. And a less safe driver can be determined by your driving manifestations. It can be determined by a slurred speech, red or glassy eyes. I think those are some terms that you will hear often when an officer is describing what he sees from a less safe driver. The per se count is when you have actually taken the state-administered blood or breath test to determine whether you're over that 0.08 limit.
So, Judge Gaines, please share with us, what are some of the consequences of a DUI charge for first-time offenders and repeat offenders?
First-time offenders, you face an entire year of probation. You have to be checked up on a regular basis about whether you are committing another offense of driving under the influence. You also face jail time, minimum at least 1 day, but you will face jail time if you are charged and convicted of driving under the influence. Also, there's education in it. You have to attend and complete a risk reduction course certified by the state of Georgia. And community service, at least 40 hours of community service is required for even a first-time offender. Now, of course, as the convictions go up, the consequences go up. You are also then required to do drug and alcohol evaluations as a part of it, and many courts require you to attend things like a MAD victim impact panel for education, so that you can hear from victims the consequences that they've suffered from driving under the influence accidents.
Great, great. Tell us, we're in the holiday season now. Is there an increase in DUI and accident cases during this time?
Oh, definitely. And we see it every year. January comes and you hear all of the reasons or excuses for why they drank too much at the holiday party and had to get behind the wheel.
Judge Gaines, tell us, what are some of the defenses that you've heard from the bench?
Everything from I was just a little bit too sleepy and that's all it was. It wasn't driving under the influence to I just had 2 beers or 2 glasses of wine.
Mm-hmm. Laren, please tell us, when you get calls to represent people for DUI defense, what are some of the defenses that are available?
Well, the first one would be, I wasn't driving. You have some persons that were simply parked in a parking spot or parked in their driveway, and they think that because they weren't physically operating a motor vehicle that they cannot be charged with DUI. I have even had clients to say that it was a necessity, like Judge Gaines mentioned, to drive, whether someone was sick or they had to take their kid to the hospital, and none of those defenses really help a person when charged with DUI. If nothing else, that person can fight the case and take it to trial, which is either a bench or by jury trial, and have the state prove their guilt. beyond a reasonable doubt, which is required here in Georgia.
Judge Gaines, the charge of driving under the influence, is that limited to motor vehicles?
Not necessarily. You certainly understand that you can be driving under the influence on a boat or on a motorcycle or a scooter, and you can certainly be charged on any of those.
Goodness, do you ever see any cases where pilots are charged with DUI for a plane, operating a plane under the influence?
Well, we have not seen that because it is a federal offense, so they would go to federal court for that offense. But we do know